Hi, I am Mike Zyda, and today's talk is entitled Japan 1985 through 1997. It is more of a story of my life than anything. So I'm going to put this on play, and there we go. So I'm Mike Zyda, and I'm in my basement in my home in Carmel by the sea, and it is the 3rd of October, 2024. And this is going to be a rambling talk. I had a lot of consulting in Japan from 1985 through 1997. Some of that consulting went all the way out to the year 2000, to about 15 years, and it was really fun. I enjoyed Japan a whole lot. I miss it. Tokyo Tower. All right, how I got to Japan. I was a professor at the Naval Postgraduate School in 1985, 84, and I went to my dean and I said, I can't afford to live in Carmel or Monterey anywhere because it's too expensive for the money I am making here. All I can do is rent. And my dean mentioned to me, he goes, well, professors at the Naval Postgraduate School are allowed to consult. And I said, really? And he goes, yeah, we have a signed memorandum to that effect signed by the Secretary of Navy. And I said, which Secretary of Navy? And he said, John Forrestal, which is a long time ago. I said, okay, let's go. And I asked him if there were any limitations, and he said, well, you can't consult for someone from whom the US government might buy something. So in my mind, I'm going, oh my God, that means I have to do something outside of the United States, and I have no idea how to get there. So anyway, this is kind of how I started in Japan. It starts kind of from that first meeting with my dean at the Navy school at that time. And in October 1984, I met with Marvin Kadich. And Marvin Kadich at that time was the salesman for Silicon Graphics for Monterey and for the Navy School. And he and I had lunch on the Fisherman's Wharf in Monterey. And he says, I told him about, I was having a hard time living and I needed some consulting. He goes, well, I just sold 3 Silicon Graphics machines to a company, Quadrix Corporation in Campbell, California. And they resold them to a company in Tokyo named Japan Tech Services, and they resold them to Hitachi Kojo, Hitachi Works in Hitachi-shi, and they didn't know how to turn them on. Would you be willing to go over there and teach them how to program those machines? I said, well, sure. And he goes, how much would you charge? And I said, well, $1,500 a day for every day I'm there, including travel days, and 25,000 yen a day in expenses, plus hotels just covered directly without me having to pay. And he says, well, let me go talk and see what's up. And, you end up talking to a lot of people in your office and, they ask you something exciting like that. And then they don't come back ever. But anyway, let's move on. This is Marvin. Marvin was one of my absolute wonderful friends at Silicon Graphics, and he was a great joy to know, and he was super supportive of whatever I did. And by the way, I went out onto the internet, and he passed just about October, I think, 2023, just as I got back home to Carmel, and he was like the first person I was going to look up and say, "Hey, let's have lunch." He's gone. I went to look for a picture, and there was one very low resolution picture of him, and I put it through Topaz Photo AI, and this is what I have, which is like the only picture I have of him. If you have a picture of him, please send it my way. He was great fun. So he's the reason I got to Japan. And Marvin, all of a sudden, yeah, I should leave this on here. Marvin all of a sudden sent me a note saying in January, saying people in Hitachi want to know how fast you can get there. I said, well, I don't have a visa. And so we arranged for me to get a work visa for Japan. I think it was a 5-year work visa. And I had to give my passport to someone who took it to the Japanese embassy in San Francisco and brought it back to me in Carmel. And next thing I know, February 1985, I was on my way to Japan. But before I went, Marvin suggested I talk to Gene Eswine, who was at Quadrix Corporation at that time, and he's a senior engineer, project engineer at General Electric, and worked at Hitachi Nuclear. And he had just come home from 3 years in Hitachi at working for Hitachi Kojo. And I had a great, hour-long. I drove up to San Jose at his office. We talked about Japan, and he gave me the skinny on, what goes on there. And he says, I remember one funny thing though. He said, there are no signs there for you to figure out how to get around. And I'm like, really, no signs? I think it was in the end he couldn't read kanji. So there are signs. You just have to read Japanese. All right. So Gene Eswine sent me to Japan Tech Services, which is in Shiba Daimon in Japan. I got on the airplane. I took Japan Airlines in February '85. I think because someone else bought the ticket directly, probably Kazi. And I asked for a no smoking seat. And this is very funny because there's no smoking on planes now, but no, I was in business class. I also asked for business class round trip tickets. So I get in the plane, and I think the first 7 rows in front of me are business class smoking, and I'm in the one sole non-smoking row right behind 7 rows of smokers. So non-smoking row back then didn't really mean damn thing. This is me. I'm 30 years old in this picture in 1985. I will turn 31 in September of that year. This is Kazi on the right side of the picture, and one of the Hitachi plant construction engineers on the back, and we'll talk about that group later. Anyway, it turns out this is the only picture I have of Kazi. I thought I had other pictures lying around. I've gone through all of the boxes in my house looking for pictures, and this is the only one I found. All right. Japan Tech, this is the company, and they represented, initially, they were the first importer of silicon graphics machines into Japan. They also were the first importer of cyberware and Syra LiDAR cameras and a number of other pieces of CAD software. And you can see my name here in Kana. It says Michael Zyda. It says California, Monterey, Kyoto. He lists me as a professor, as a executive consultant for Japan Tech Services. And I was that from 1985 all the way through the year 2000. And this is just a Google map piece of where Japan Tech Services is located. So if I start you from the right, you'll see a red circle there, and on that red circle is kind of where Japan Tech Services office was. If you see the next red circle to the left, it says Family Mart in the middle. That's the Shiba Daimon crossing, all right? And that's, so technically we're in Shiba Daimon. Probably on the far right, it says Hamamatsucho, which is where the JR station is for getting off. And up at the middle, about the middle, a little bit up, is Shiba Park Hotel, which is a 3-star hotel. I mean, if you rolled out of bed really quickly, your knees would turn the television on. And the location is really cool because we are next to Zojoji, which is a Buddhist temple complex dating to 1622. And it's Shiba Koen, which is Shiba Park. And behind that is Tokyo Tower, which is like the symbol of modern Japan from a long time ago now. This is Shiba Daimon crossing. It's very cool. And JTS is in the Shiba Daimon area. In fact, it's part of the address. Again, I left a couple of pictures in here. Here's Shiba Daimon. I think this Buddha-like statue is in Zojoji in Shiba Koen. And you'll see me reading the Monterey Herald kind of in this crazy fashion. And the only reason for that, by the way, was the Monterey Herald at that time if you would send a picture in of you traveling somewhere interesting, they would reprint your picture in the Herald. And I sent this one in, and of course they didn't print it. This is one of my former students from the Naval Postgraduate School, John Roseley, who ended up in Japan at the same time. And he and I got together at some big shopping hall here. Tokyo Tower. I went to the top of it. It's a very big, great view of just about everything. All right. This is Joji Jinja, which is the shrine. And I ended up being in Tokyo, I think just 3 days. I stayed at the Ginza Daiichi Hotel, which was kind of nice to be in Ginza. It's kind of a dive hotel at the time. Probably still is a dive hotel. Just that kind of place. When I got to Hitachi-shi, I ended up in this hotel. At that time, it was called the Hotel Park, which is run by a Korean family in Japan, and now it's called the Hotel Hitachi Hills. And right on the first floor to the right, it was a pachinko parlor. So I ended up getting rooms above the pachinko parlor. And if you've ever been to above a very noisy pachinko parlor at night, it's pretty crazy times. The front desk in 1985 looked exactly like it does now. And I took these pictures off of Google Street View. That front desk, cashier slot there, if you wanted to make an international call in 1985, you have to come down to the front desk and say, hey, I'm in room 302. I need to make a call to this number. And they would go, well, it'll take us 15 to 20 minutes to be able to get an international line to America so you can call your family back home. And it also was very expensive. I think it was $4 or $5 a minute. So it was like, didn't do it too often. So I think I disappeared for the first trip, which is 3 weeks long. Anyway, for some reason, I still have the matchbooks from Hotel Park sitting in my drawer here, and I scan them. It also has a restaurant, which is the left-hand side, and where you can go. And they had two different kinds of breakfast. One was Japanese breakfast, and the other is, of course, American breakfast. And they're different places. You couldn't sit together. It's interesting. All right. One of the things my business agent Kazi Yokota did is he took me over to this establishment here, which at the time was called Kotsuzumi. And you can see I saved the matchbook for Kotsuzumi. Kotsuzumi is that little drum on the left. It's a famous Japanese drum. It's the name of the bar. It's actually a 8-stool sunaku, which is a little snack shop. Will serve you some Japanese food while you sit in a bar stool and drink. And so it's named after this drum. And there's me. I'm now you have to imagine I got to Japan in 1985. I had never ever eaten with chopsticks before, and I had in fact never eaten any Japanese food. And here I am learning to use chopsticks for the first time, which is hilarious. And you can see when you are 30 years old, you have hair, and it's not gray, it's reddish. Here I am trying to eat noodles with chopsticks, which still to this date is complicated and difficult, but I do it no matter what. Here I am. This is the owner of that place, Kotsuzumi. Her name is Hirayama Misako, and she would teach me how to eat Japanese food. My business agent left me at this sunaku and said, come here every night for dinner. They will make you a different dinner every night. They will teach you how to eat it. They will teach you how to drink sake. They will teach you how to speak Japanese and, learn to sing Japanese songs in karaoke, which is pretty crazy. All right.